Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Progressives, this is your trigger warning. Hi, folks. Welcome back. And those of you that are new, welcome. This is a agenda item, which I'm a Trump fan, but I got to tell you, I wish he wouldn't go off on these tangents and do some childish things sometimes. If you go to True Social and go to President Trump's page, he has video after video. I believe he also has DonaldJTrump.com. Now, it lists all those agenda items that he wants to do for if and when he wins next year. And there's some great agenda items, just marvelous things. And I wish he would stick to those. I wish he would. But can't teach an old dog new tricks, I guess. And I'm still a Trump fan. And barring anything unbelievable or unforeseen, always will be. This is about birthright citizenship. Now, I've read the Constitution, not that I'm an expert, and I've read papers, videos, just essays in general on what they call birthright citizenship. That's if you're an illegal migrant and you're in this country and you give birth, currently we say that child is automatically an American citizen. Now, that wasn't like that for a very long time. I'm trying to do this from memory, but according to the Constitution, it basically says anyone that's under the jurisdiction of another foreign power, i.e. not the United States, cannot give birth here, and that child become a citizen automatically. I mean, there's even a tourism for it, birthright tourism, hundreds of thousands, which leads to chain migration, all kinds of other things. Now, I got to say, honestly, I'm not against the plight of migrants. My father's parents were off the boat Italians, as they say, but they came to this country lawfully and legally. You have to go back to the port of entry if you're unlawful and apply for citizenship. And you go through the process. Yes, it takes a while. Yes, it's sometimes expensive. But American citizenship is one of the most premier citizenships in the world. You just don't give it away for free. So let's listen out, and I'll make a comment along the way.
Biden has launched an illegal foreign invasion of our country, allowing a record number of illegal aliens to storm across our borders. From all over the world they came. Under Biden's current policies, even though these millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully, all of their future children will become automatic U.S. citizens. Can you imagine? They'll be eligible for welfare, taxpayer-funded health care, the right to vote, chain migration, and countless other government benefits, many of which will also profit the illegal alien parents.
Now, I want to say this. I'd be an open borders person tomorrow, within reason, of course. You can have open borders or very, very, we'll say, liberal immigration, or you can have social welfare programs. You can't have both. If you notice, when my grandparents came in the early 20th century, and a lot of people's families came, it was before the Great Society welfare programs of the mid-1960s. Think about that for a minute. I wouldn't have an issue, now I don't know if it'll hold up in court, that if you're a person that applies for citizenship, and while you're applying for citizenship, say you have a work permit, you cannot collect social services program money, you or any of your dependents, until you become a full citizen. We pay an exorbitant amount of taxes. A lot of us do. I've never got a dime for free. Never. One time, years ago, when I almost died in a fire and lost everything I own, the Red Cross gave me a $50 gift card for some food. Well, I didn't have a place to live, so I gave it to somebody I knew was destitute and needed it. And that's the only money I've ever gotten ever from a government agency or a quasi-government agency. You can have liberal migration and you can have welfare programs, but you can't afford both. It'll bankrupt the country worse than it already is.
This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States and is obviously a magnet helping draw the flood of illegals across our borders. They come by the millions and millions and millions. They come from mental institutions. They come from jails, prisoners, some of the toughest, meanest people you'll ever see. The United States is among the only countries in the world that says that even if neither parent is a citizen nor even lawfully in the country, their future children are automatic citizens the moment the parents trespass onto our soil. As has been laid out by many scholars, this current policy is based on a historical myth and a willful misinterpretation of the law by the open borders advocates. There aren't that many of them around. It's amazing. Who wants this? Who wants to have prisoners coming into our country? Who wants to have people who are very sick coming into our country? People from mental institutions coming into our country? And come they will. They're coming by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. As part of my plan to secure the border on day one of my new term in office, I will sign an executive order making clear to federal agencies that under the correct interpretation of the law, going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship. It's things like this that bring millions of people to our country, and they enter our country illegally. My policy will choke off a major incentive for continued illegal immigration, deter more migrants from coming, and encourage many of the aliens Joe Biden has unlawfully let into our country to go back to their home countries. They must go back. Nobody could afford this. Nobody could do this. And even more.
I want you to think about this for a minute, and I'm going to pause the video. Those of you on the low-income scale, it isn't just non-whites. There's millions and millions of white people that are on the low end economically. Even though in the world, they're doing very well, but for the U.S., they're not. And they go to get entry-level jobs. Do you think for a minute that having tens of millions of illegal migrants, they got to eat, they got to work somewhere, working unlawfully, illegally? Do you think that deters low-income wages? A lot of the left talks about minimum wage and increasing the minimum wage. I think minimum wage shouldn't be in there, but that's a different issue. For those of you that do think it's proper, do you think all these millions and millions and millions of unlawful migrants who are working under the table or stealing or having false Social Security numbers, do you think for a minute that raises wages for low-income people or lowers them? You'd have to have at least two brain cells touching to figure out the fact it brings down wages. And those are the things that the so-called progressives bitch about the most. A living wage. Well, wages will increase if the tens of millions of illegals that are working are gone and only American citizens or those with work permits and visas can work. It's simple math. If you're for low-income Americans, you are against unlawful immigration.
Morally, it's so wrong. My order will also end their unfair practice known as birth tourism, where hundreds of thousands of people from all over the planet to illegitimately and illegally obtain U.S. citizenship for the child, often to later exploit chain migration to jump the line and get green cards for themselves and their family members. It's a practice that's so horrible and so egregious, but we let it go forward. At least one parent will have to be a citizen or a legal resident in order to qualify. We will secure our borders and we will restore our sovereignty.
Yeah. You're here as a citizen or here legally. If you're here legally as a permanent resident but not a citizen yet and you have a child, that child is a citizen. He just said that is more than reasonable. More than reasonable. It's amazing to me. Now, what will happen with the people if and when Trump is sworn in, the executive order goes in, I'm sure it'll be challenged in court right away, but eventually the courts will settle it. And frankly, I'm really surprised that the Supreme Court hasn't gotten a case where birthright citizenship, a mother steps into this country, has a child, and she's here unlawfully. That child is automatically a citizen. It was never like that for the vast majority of the history of our country. It's only the radicals on the left and the progressives that have used this policy. And in some courts, it's been upheld. To my knowledge, not the Supreme Court. This is what the court is for, to make these things clear and precise of what you can and what you cannot do under the Constitution. Any reasonable person would be for legal migration. If you're spouting, let anybody in, nobody's illegal, your head's on cockeyed. You're not thinking clearly. No country can survive. Look what's happening in France. Look what's happening in huge swaths of Sweden now. Look what's happening in huge parts of London and other cities in England. Look, that's what happens when too many people from another country enter and don't assimilate into the culture of the country they're going into. Like I said, my father's parents, my grandparents were all they call off-the-boat Italians. Yes, we had our own culture. Yes, they had their own Italian culture, but they assimilated. Many Italian-speaking people, when they spoke Italian in the home, many parents said, we're Americans now, we speak English. My grandmother had zero education to speak of, lived to 88 years old, rest in peace. When her and I talked, when I was young, we talked in Italian. When I was older, we talked in English. She understood English very well. Couldn't read or write, but she knew money and she knew how to communicate in English. And she contributed to this culture dramatically, just herself alone. Those are the kind of immigrants that we're looking for. Not what's going on now. It's horrendous. And what are you going to do with all those DACA kids, which the court has ruled is unlawful, that Obama gave an executive order to, without authorization? It's a mess. And Trump's willing to try to straighten it out, and no one else has so far.
Starting on day one, our country will be great again. Our country will be a country again. We'll have borders. We'll have proper education. And we'll put America first. Thank you.
So I just want to leave it off with this. It's a reasonable agenda. It's a reasonable, they call it plank in your platform. They used to call it in the old days. It's reasonable. You have to be here lawfully. And those of you that are seeing this video that are progressive or left, thinking, well, nobody's illegal, and people are coming from economic hardships. Economic hardship is not, repeat, is not a legal criteria for asylum. Period. Never has, never will be. That's why the lawyers that work for these NGOs, they teach the people how to lie when they're entering the country so they can get at least a hearing for asylum. They're here for economic reasons. And I wish them God's grace. I really and truly do. But if we take in as many as that want to come here, there'll be nothing left of this country to speak of. They're coming here from all over the world for one simple reason. We have the best country. Those of you can shake your head and say no, but all these millions of people can't be stupid. They're coming here because we know America is what Reagan used to say is a shining city on the hill. Not perfect by any means, but damn, way better than anywhere else in the world. Until next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.